everyone, and welcome to another weekly energy forecast. So, in these sessions, we have a little look at the astrological energy of the week, the moon energy of the week, the moon phase energy of the week, the energy of the seasons, and how they all layer on top of each other to create our experience of the week, and also understanding of how um, it helps us to understand how we can consciously work with those energies, what to expect during the week, and it gives us opportunity to understand why things are happening, so we can choose how we respond to them, making the most out of the potential for these transits. So even when we are having transits that are challenging or tense, we're ready for them. We know that they're coming, and we also know what they're trying to teach us or what they're trying to guide us towards. So this awareness and life literacy can just help you in navigating life with more intention and clarity rather than just reactively. So, this is a big old week. There's lots to get through. I'm going to dive straight in. So, it's a week of expansion. We have Jupiter moving into Cancer finally. And there's just support, softness, care, and compassion with that. Um, it is sprinkled with a touch of limitation and spice at the end of the week. But overall, it is a really lovely week and a transition into getting some help and support from a planet that has been not really been in its best position for quite a long time. And particularly in an area of your chart that was activated by the Mars retrogrades earlier in this year, brought a lot of tension and a lot of difficulty. That is now going to be eased, and we're going to get some reprieve from that. And this is really where Jupiter's going to expand and help us and give support. So there's a bit of a theme this week, like kind of expanding into a new once in 12 year chapter, which is like really supportive, whilst maybe accepting and learning from some of the limitations or perceived limitations that we have in that area of life. So, and we also have a really lovely and expansive full moon coming up this week, which is it's it's helpful because the ruler of the full moon is so well placed. But there is a little bit of tension here with a square to the nodes, which I'll unpack a little bit. So the full moon is going to bring heightened energy, heightened emotion, with it also being a Sagittarius, which is a fire sign. It's also lots and lots of big, loud energy. Then we are also in the final week of spring, energy before we then move into the earth, which transitions us through the solstice. So this is the last of the really directional spring wood element energy, which is active and energizing. So we've got expansion, growth, and support, a little bit of limitation, and lots of energy and lots of activeness. So, great week for taking action. There's going to be a lot of energy supporting, but also maybe some potential for some acceptance work or developing a relationship with limitation, because Saturn and Neptune are going to be involved in a square to a lot of the stuff that's happening this week, um, which is great, to be fair. Like, it's going to give us a bit of a head start because Saturn and Neptune are going to be conjunct for a little while. And that journey is going to continue on into 2026. So this is going to highlight some of those themes for us, but also open us up to the potential of the potentially positive expressions of that transit as well. Um, I did also just want to acknowledge as well that 2025 is a big year. So this is a really there's some really helpful and supportive energy right now. We've got Venus in her home sign. We've got Jupiter in its sign of exaltation. Um, we have a lot of help and support. However, this is still 2025. So it's still a big year. And I do want to acknowledge that because I think June is lovely. May was helpful. June is lovely, but there are also some potentially fairly tense aspects that are still happening. There is also we're amidst a lot of big energy. We had a very, very exhausting start to the year with all those retrogrades and that Mars retrograde particularly. So there's help here and there's support here, and there's a moment of like, ah, praise the Lord. But it's not going to be like all sunshine and roses and skipping off into the sunset. There are going to be some tense aspects, but we have the support at the moment, and we are going to have that support throughout this next year with Jupiter staying in Cancer for about a year. Um, so really with this transit comes the potential for just really grounding and like accepting as well with the potential limitation while maintaining a strong foundation. When there's a lot of energy happening, there's a lot happening this week. Sagittarius is energizing, it's bold, and so staying grounded and accepting of the potential that that brings, and it enables us to navigate periods like this with a lot more clarity and intention, as I mentioned before. Um, Okay, so let's get into the energy of the week. So on Monday, the 9th of June, we have Jupiter moving into Cancer. So that's today. Jupiter is in his I think it's technically a masculine planet, actually. But Jupiter is in his exaltation here. I may have said Jupiter is at home there here last week. That was wrong, and that woke me up in the middle of the night the other day when I realized that I'd said that. Jupiter is in its sign of exaltation. So Jupiter is at home in Pisces and in Sagittarius. It's in its exaltation. It's lifted up in Cancer. So it loves to be in Cancer. Jupiter in Cancer is nourishing, nurturing, and caring. It's soft, it's supportive, it is protective as well. But a healthy, expansive, supportive Jupiter in Cancer is protective and boundary to an extent because Cancer wants to protect and kind of secure, but in a way that is and kind of keeping the outside world. It's like a permeable protection. Um, it's caring, it's compassionate, it's abundance, it's comfort, it is connection. So and also potentially quite an intuitive transit as well, particularly in the area of life that of your chart that this is falling in, because Cancer energy, I always often say in readings to people, is the most intuitive of the water signs in some way. So if you have Cancer on a cusp of a sign in your house, maybe it's your seventh house of relationships, maybe it's your fourth house of home, maybe it's your 10th house of career, because Jupiter expands and kind of opens up potential. There could be potential for this period of time to be quite, it could kind of awaken like intuitive insight as well, like the ability to just be like sense that something's not right or sense that this is the right way to move forward because we have the support like with Jupiter, but we also have the potential for really clear intuitive hits because it's really highlighting and accentuating the qualities of Cancer energy. Cancer also relates to the past, to your roots, to your lineage as well. So there could be for potential for this to be really feeding your area of life that it's activating for you right now. So go and have a look in your chart, see where Cancer is falling in your chart because you're going to have a year-long transit of growth and expansion. Now, the first week or so is being tempered by Saturn, which I'm going to get to in a moment. But this is kind of the beginning of that year-long journey throughout this sign, and we haven't had this for a long time. So, um, it's opening up for an area of your chart for expansion. And the last time we had a transit like this was about 12 years ago. So 2013 to 2014. This might be an echo of the themes that were happening in that area of life at a specific time. So have a little look in your chart, see where this is falling, and do a little bit of reflection and understand, okay, so, for example, if this is in your seventh house of relationships, well, what was happening around that time? What expanded you? What opportunities came through, what were there like moments of growth that were happening around there? Because that will give you an indication. We usually often get an echo of whatever that transit brought up for us in the past. So astrology is so incredibly helpful with hindsight. So definitely have a little look at that because that's really going to set you up. And generally when a planet ingresses into a sign as well, that's really when it's at its loudest and it tends to make a bit of noise and gives us a bit of an understanding of what that transit is all going to be about. So whatever kind of comes up around this first week or so within this transit, it might be able to give you an indication of what you're really being pushed to grow and expand into over the next year. Um, Cancer is also a cardinal sign as well, so it births things, it brings things into existence. Cardinal signs begins things. So Aries is the starter flame of zodiac, it's like the spark of inspiration. But Cancer, because it's a water sign, it's creative and it's nurturing. It's almost like the nurturing waters of the womb. So it can birth things into existence. This is creation. So it's very creative energy, but that doesn't always mean creative writing art. It can be creating whatever it is, even if you're building a corporate company, you're still birthing something into existence. So this, like Cancer moving Jupiter moving into Cancer could kickstart a journey of you birthing and creating something new potentially as well. Okay, moving on. So Mercury in Cancer is gonna square Saturn in Aries at almost 1 degree. That's also happening on Monday. And then we also have Venus in Taurus squaring Pluto retrograde in Aquarius. So we've got a little bit of help with Jupiter moving into Cancer, but then we also have Saturn tempering things a little bit. And we have a little bit of tension on Monday. which is probably going to lessen off a little bit as we get to Wednesday and move throughout the week. So this Mercury Cancer square is really kicking off a bit of a series of planets kind of moving into that initial square with Saturn and Aries, which has only just moved in. So these are the first kind of flavors of the squares that transit through the cardinal signs that we're going to be getting, or tense aspects to Saturn in Aries, which is going to be there. Well, with a brief trip back into Pisces in the autumn, but it's going to be there now for the next 3 years, roughly. Um, so Mercury, because it's only at 1 degree and Jupiter will be at 0 degrees at this point, is going to be pretty influenced by Cancer, by Jupiter as well. So it's going to be moving in and pretty much squaring that Saturn in Aries straight away. But Jupiter is very much wrapped up in this Mercury square. So this could be like Saturn limits, and Saturn is in Aries, which is the self. So this could be feeling limited in expansion or self-expression. So Jupiter's going to come in and be like, woohoo, let's expand into this area of life. And then we might, that has also been getting a lot of challenge with the Mars retrogrades from earlier in the year. Suddenly, like Monday might feel like a shift in tone, like, oh, amazing. Things are feeling like they're starting to kind of expand out, but there is going to be a little bit of limitation, and that Mercury is going to activate that pretty much straight away. That's again going to only be active for the first week or so of this transit. But this is, it's feeling limited in expansion and self-expression. So maybe you're kind of seeing opportunity, right? Jupiter brings opportunity, it brings clarity, it brings the ability to grow and expand. But because it's being tempered, you might see the potential, but you're not quite ready to expand into it yet, right? So that might cause frustration. You might mentally and cognitively understand where the potential for expansion is, which is that Jupiter Mercury kind of loose conjunction that's happening here. But you're not like, you can see the potential to birth something. You express yourself throughout this sign, like I mentioned before, it's quite creative, but that's feeling tempered and limited, and that's Saturn. So it's expansive and good in a sense because we do have Jupiter there, and it could help us to see how to take steps forward and expand into something new within the confines of reality. So it's almost like a touch of realism to what we're hoping to expand into. So Saturn is really tempering this and being like, okay, but what are the practical steps? What resources do you actually have now? Not resources that you're hoping to have, but what do you actually physically have to work with right now? And what are the steps we're going to take to get there? And that might cause a little bit of tension and friction and discomfort, but it's there to help. Um, this could also be a bit structuring to an extent, like Saturn brings structure. So it's helpful for like hope, optimism, abundance, possibility, but also, like I mentioned, the concrete steps to getting there. So it almost gives you this opportunity potentially to really own what's actually realistic and then get really, really clear on the steps. So, um, duh, 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 duh. Structuring. And then also Neptune, though, because Neptune is very, very close to Saturn. They're in 1 degree of each other. So Mercury is going to go on and then make another square to Neptune. So there is also potential here for haze and confusion. Neptune also dissolves structure as well. So it could be that there is a little bit of like, okay, what are the clear, tangible steps to get there? But maybe there's like need for structuring and need for really owning what's realistic, but also maybe this it's not super clear exactly how that's going to work, right? That's the tension there. So just be mindful of that. Also knowing that this is going to pass as well, but the tension is here to help you. So make a realistic plan within what is actually possible, and also know that Neptune may be hazing things, and when things move on, the clarity will come. Um, okay, and then we also have Venus in Taurus squaring Pluto retrograde in Aquarius. So this could just bring a bit of tension in the area of relationships and power dynamics with it being Pluto. So this could be a push to kind of really go deep and unearth and uncover what is causing tension in relationships, essentially. And there's potential for transformation when we really own that in a beneficial way. So nonviolent communication can be a really great tool to lean on at this time, just to really investigate and understand. And then Mercury in Cancer is then going to move on later in that day and square Neptune in Aries, but that's going to bring like a bit of haze, confusion, make things a little bit hard to grasp. This is almost like trying to get your thoughts in order because it's Mercury as the mind, but then like feeling like you're trying to catch smoke. Um, so it can be creative or it can be a creative block as well, potentially, because Saturn is involved and it's in a close conjunction. So surrender to this, it will pass and clarity will come. So just be mindful of that. Um, and then Wednesday, the 11th of June, we have the full moon in Sagittarius happening at 20 degrees of Sagittarius. So have a little look at where this is falling in your chart, if it's aspecting any planets. So if you have any planets around 20 degrees of signs that it's aspecting in a trine or a square, or potentially a sextile, this is going to be an interesting one to look at. So, um, and then on the same day, we then have Mercury in Cancer sextiling Venus in Taurus as well. So it just gives like an extra layer of really lovely support. So I really like this specific aspect. Mercury is the planet of communication in creative, beautiful, poetic expression because it's in Cancer, an emotional, creative sign. And it's being supported and grounded by a very practical, harmonious Venus. So after that kind of challenging aspect it had earlier in the week with it's square to Saturn and Neptune, kind of feeling limited, a little bit confused. Then Mercury is then gonna get a sense of grounding on Wednesday, and there'll be potential for some really lovely, supportive communication, which might help smooth over some of the tension from earlier in the week, particularly if that did come up with that Venus square Pluto transit as well. So on the same day, with this lovely supportive communication aspect, we then also have a full moon in Sagittarius. So this is happening at 20 degrees, as I mentioned before, and it's a very expansive full moon. So the ruler of this full moon is Jupiter, which is incredibly well placed in Cancer in his exaltation. And a full moon in Sagittarius is active, it's explorative, it's the adventurer. And Cancer is home, it's cozy, it's nurturing, and it's inward. So they are very, very different contrasting energies. So, but they are also like supportive. They're in mutual reception. Like Jupiter is in the moon is in Sagittarius, and the ruler of Sagittarius, is in Cancer, which is then ruled by the moon. So they're in mutual reception. The planets understand each other, and it's also the rulership. So this this is helpful and it feels like opening yourself up. Like Sagittarius wants to expand and open up to possibilities beyond, and it almost feels like it's doing that beyond your immediate environment. Like Cancer is inward, it's home, and Sagittarius wants you to open and broaden your horizons. So it's almost opening you up to what's possible and not staying fixed, tunnel vision, inward, not looking ahead, because Cancer can be very focused on the past. So this feels like there's a real potential with this full moon, and particularly with the full moon shine a light, they help us get clarity. And that Cancer, Jupiter in Cancer is very much like expanding past perceived limitations potentially. This is also square the nodes though. So this is the midpoint between the eclipses when we have a square to the node from the sun. So this could bring a moment of tension, of challenge, and or like a change of direction around the eclipsy themes that have been coming up in your life. So this has roughly been active since September 24. So wherever you have Pisces and that Pisces Virgo axis, that's where the eclipses are happening, and we're at the halfway point. So full moons shine a light. They bring a moment of understanding what's not working. With this being a square, it is a tense aspect. So it is looking at where's the friction point and what do we need to do to move past that. But again, squares, like tense aspects, bring opportunity for change. So this, and with it being a fire rule, like with it being a fire full moon, this almost feel, and with it being a full moon as well, which is energizing, and with the spring energy, which is pushing us forward, this feels like fire supporting you in taking action and actually moving things forward. So this could be an intuitive hit with this Jupiter being in Cancer, or a feeling that then sparks you into action, like an emotion that sparks you into action. And that's that Jupiter Sagittarius kind of mutual reception that's happening there. Um, then on Sunday, the 5th of June, we have Mars in Leo squaring Uranus and Taurus at 28 degrees. So this is the spicy aspect of the week. This is a little bit tense. It's kind of like a last hurrah from this Mars retrograde. Now, Mars cleared cleared its pre-retrograde shadow quite a while ago, but it's still within the sign that it went retrograde in. So this really is because it's right at the end of the sign when we have transits and aspects at the end of signs, this is like a moment to kind of tie up loose ends a little bit. So this is the end of that journey. Uranus is also preparing to ingress into Gemini as well, which is happening in a week or a couple of weeks. No, in July. Yeah. So there's potential for like a final resurfacing of something niggly that is brought to your attention that suddenly requires action. So Jupiter awakens, it brings like lightning bolts, it brings realization, and then Mars is action, right? So that's kind of a positive aspect, but it could be a little bit sticky and challenging, but we need to take the action. And this is really an opportunity for you to tie up loose ends and create space so you can step into a new chapter with it, leave that baggage behind, right? So this is, it's really, really, really helpful in helping us to really see things clearly, especially we're still kind of coming off the back of the full moon. So there's still a lot of light around. There's a lot of potential for clarity, but really don't ignore what this brings to your attention because Jupiter is expanding and really bringing opportunity into the area of life that it has been bringing challenge to. And if we don't kind of take the opportunity of what the challenge has brought and then the lesson, then Jupiter can't then come back over and expand whatever that was, right? So taking responsibility, like this challenge is coming up, this like tension is coming up for a reason. There's an opportunity here. So it might be a bit hot, it might be a bit fiery, tense, a little bit earthquakey, a little bit like foundation unstabilizing. You know what I mean? Um, it could be also a bit tender, but it's happening for you. So Sunday, the 15th of June, pay attention, take responsibility, show up and take the action. You will not regret it. Um, and then as Jupiter continues on its journey, Jupiter in Cancer is going to come up behind Mercury and make that square again to Saturn in Aries and then also Neptune in Aries. So this is like tempering this like expansive transit. Um, it's this is help, but limited with the confines within Saturn's reality. You might feel the want to expand and then a bit of conflict between diving in quickly head first, but perhaps not being able to just yet because you don't have the resources, you don't have the foundation. Saturn values the long game and the opportunity to lay foundations. But then Neptune is also involved here, which could haze and confuse things. There's potential for structuring to an extent, like it could dissolve some of this potential structuring and some of the potential like limitation as well. So there could be again a little bit like we're on shaky ground, we're kind of in quicksand. We think we've got a foundation, we think we've got a limitation. It's feeling a little bit weird. That's fine. Look at the opportunities that are coming and know that the we're not kind of stepping into the full expansion of this just yet, but Saturn wants us to lay the foundations and Neptune wants us to dream a little bit and also maybe open up to how can we dissolve these perceived limitations. So that again, there's opportunity here. Saturn, we want to go in, like Saturn in Aries wants to go in head first, but it can't. Neptune wants to dissolve things, to wash things away. And it's creating tension with expansion, right? So again, we might start to see what we want to be bringing or something new that's want to come into existence. We might feel limited and we might want to then kind of dissolve those limitations. And that's what this transit is supporting with. So this theme is so present this week. And one thing I really would say to kind of make the most of this astrology is having a strong foundation of consciousness, of awareness, of like the ability to reflect regularly so you can see what's coming up in your life, so you can see where the potential for expansion is, where life is communicating to you. Um, this is so incredibly important, and that is really what our membership really supports with as well. So if you want to join us, come along this evening. We've got a full moon coaching call this evening where we're really going to explore and expand into some of this energy, really reflect, get clear on what's coming up for us. And this really helps us to identify what these transits are about for us and then also how to move forward. So the full moon coaching call is about reflection and it's about setting intentions of how to move forward. So if you're noticing some themes coming up in your life, you want to explore that, come on over. The membership structure is there to support you in staying on track, in building your consciousness and your relationship with yourself and with life. So It helps you. We've got somatic practices that help you drop into the body and really create that. At the moment, we are working with the regulator and the penetrating flow on the membership. So, guys who are on the membership, these are such incredibly helpful energies to be working with over the next week or so, because the regulator flow is going to help you connect with those cycles, because we've got so much moon action going on, and we've also got so much Cancer energy, which is ruled by the moon. Feeling very rhythmic and in alignment with your inner rhythm is going to be so incredibly important for navigating this next year and beyond. So working with these energies is so helpful, and it also helps us to connect with our gifts, to connect with our past, and help let that help, oh my gosh, words, to help us move forward with the past supporting us, not limiting us, right? Which is what all of this is kind of about this week. So these working with these flows in somatic practice can be so incredibly helpful for that. So guys on the membership, really lean into those practices this week, because they're going to be incredibly supportive for building a strong foundation for you to make the most of this next year. So those of you who aren't in the membership, please feel free to come and join us. You can find out more at the link below or in the bio, and I'll see you next week in the next video. Lots of love.